And the first question stands in the name of Pesata Samlor Tuiinga.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for State-Owned Enterprises. What tests would need to be met before the government proceeded with extending the mixed ownership model to 4 more state-owned enterprises?
The Honourable Simon Power.
Mr Speaker, the government has set out 5 tests that need to be met before we extend the mixed ownership model. The first is the government would need to maintain a majority controlling stake by owning more than 50% of the company. Second, New Zealand investors would have to be at the front of the queue for shareholdings and would have to be confident of widespread and substantial New Zealand share ownership. Third, the companies would have to present good opportunities for investors. Fourth, the capital freed up would have to be used on behalf of taxpayers to fund new public assets and thereby reduce pressure on the government to borrow. And fifth, the government would have to be satisfied that industry-specific regulations adequately protected New Zealand consumers. Mr Speaker, the Minister of Finance and I have asked Treasury to provide us with advice that addresses those issues.
Pesata Samlor Tuiinga.
Supplementary to the Minister. Are there any examples where a mixed ownership model has worked well?
The Honourable Simon Power.
Mr Speaker. Yes, Mr Speaker, the advice I have is that after the 4th Labour government sold Air New Zealand completely in 1989, the 5th Labour government initially purchased an 82% share in 2001 and then actually diluted that to 74%, mainly by issuing convertible notes to a foreign investor, namely Qantas.
Pesata Samlor Tuiinga.
Supplementary to the Honourable Minister.
Order. 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 I've called. Order. Now, it's difficult for members of the back of the House to be heard when there's a barrage across the front of the House. It asks members to be more reasonable. Pesata Samlor Tuiinga. Supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Further supplementary. Has he seen any reports that show widespread support for creating the opportunities for mum and dad shareholders to invest in mixed ownership model?
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
I sort of apologise to the member for interrupting, sir, but I think because Simon Power is generally regarded as honest.
Order. No, order. Order. The member will resume his seat immediately. Order. The member is a very experienced member of the House. He's the shadow leader of the House. He knows that attempt at a point of order was totally outside standing orders. Now, the member, if he's going to be the shadow leader of the House, should treat the House with more respect than that. Pesata Samlor Tuiinga. Supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Has he seen any reports that show widespread support for creating the opportunities for mum and dad shareholders to invest in mixed ownership models?
Speaker, yes, I've seen a report proposing to sell SOE subsidiaries to mums and dads on the stock exchange, stating that, quote, I think it's part of our job to give them some exciting examples and to work with the stock exchange and work with individual companies to try and rebuild interest in capital markets in New Zealand. I think there's room for a lot of both breadth and depth in our capital markets. I wish I could have said it that eloquently, Mr Speaker, but that was Trevor Mallard in 2006.
The Honourable Clayton Cosgrove. Order. 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 I know these issues are contested issues, but I've called the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove and he deserves the chance to ask his supplementary question.
To the Minister. Is it not the case that large numbers of shares in energy SOEs would end up in the hands of foreign institutional investors because, as Guy Eliff, the head of AMP Capital Investors, has pointed out, local investors do not have the capacity to quote-unquote mop up enough of the shares?
The Honourable Simon Power.
Mr Speaker, not necessarily. In fact, Mr Speaker, according to a report in the Waikato Times in 1999, after Contact Energy was floated, of the 225,000 small New Zealand investors who bought up to $2,500 worth of shares, 120,000 of these were new players in the share market.
Question, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Was the comment in his primary response accurate when he said that the government issued convertible notes in Air New Zealand? Was it 100% accurate?
The Honourable Simon Power.
Mr Speaker, the advice I have is that the dilution occurred by the issuing of convertible notes to a foreign investor, namely Qantas.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor.
The question was very specific. Did the government issue convertible notes?
Well, the Minister, order. A point of order is being heard, and the Minister answered that question. As I heard, the Minister answered that question.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, he answered that convertible notes were issued. He did not say that the government issued convertible notes. The government can't issue convertible notes.
Order. Order. The member is now disputing by way of point of order an answer given. He cannot do that, and he knows that. The member should, if he is concerned about the answer the Minister gave, go back and look at the record and see exactly what the Minister said. But in terms of the question asked, the Minister answered it. And that is as far as I can take the matter in the House. Point of order, the Honourable David Park.
Point of order, with respect. The shadow leader of the House was making the point that he didn't address the question by pointing out that the question was who issued the convertible notes.
Well,
he didn't address
all due respect to the person, that wasn't the question asked. The question asked wasn't who issued convertible notes. If that had been the question asked, there might have been a different answer. But as far as I'm concerned, that matter is dealt with, and if the member has a further supplementary question, that's in his hands. Is it a supplementary question, the Honourable Trevor Mallard?
Did the government issue convertible notes in Air New Zealand?
The Honourable Simon.
No, the company did. But the point is, that party agreed to the structure, and they come to this House telling us about these.
Order, I apologise. Order, order. Now, the Honourable Shane Jones may wish to think why he should remain in the House, but it's early in the year, and I don't want to be hard on a newly promoted member. Now, look, order. Someone will be leaving the House very soon if they are not careful. Now, the member asked a question. The House deserved to hear the answer and could not hear the answer beyond the first few words. I invite the Honourable Simon Power to repeat his answer, and the House will treat it with respect. The Honourable Simon Power.
The Minister, responding to the member's question, yes, the company issues the convertible notes, but the structure of the way this deal was set up did not prevent foreign investors from taking a share in the company.
Question number 2, the Honourable Annette King.
What a silly answer.
Does the member wish to ask her question? I've called question number 2, the Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question to the Minister of Social Development and Employment. What steps, if any, has she taken in response to the 2010 New Zealand Children's Social Health Monitor released in December last year, which prompted the Children's Commissioner to call for urgent action from the government?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, the Children's